So today we're going to be talking about how to properly install an angle stop. Now, no matter what assignment you've been given, the most important thing you're going to need are your tools that you need and your materials. So just keep that in mind, that with any assignment that you're being given, just make sure that you grab all the things that you need, so that way you can get your job done quickly and you don't have to run back and go get your materials. So, to install your angle stop, you need your escutcheon, your angle stop, your dope, which is like a putty seal. And then we have our pipe cutters, we have our sandcloth, and we have our angle stop tool, which is like a wrench. And then we have a bucket, so that we don't get any water anywhere. And you probably want to also have a sponge as well with this.
Now you want to make sure that your water main is shut off before you start cutting into any pipe. You don't want any water spraying at you when you cut into the pipe. So here we have our ball valve down at the bottom with the yellow handle, and you're just going to turn that to the side to make sure that it's off. If it is parallel with the pipe, it is on. If it is perpendicular with the pipe, it is off. So make sure that it's in the off position. And once it is off, you're going to try to drain out as much water as you can, and usually you can do that by opening up the hose bib, letting the water drain out that way. Or if the place has any fixtures or faucets, you can open up your faucets to allow water to drain out, so that you are not having to deal with as much water coming out of the pipe when you go to cut it. So make sure that your water is off before you start cutting into the pipe. If you need to, you can also turn off the water at the city, at the meter. Sometimes this is helpful because sometimes the ball valve is not clean, or it does not shut off all the way. So it's important to make sure that your water is going to be off no matter what. So at this point we have two stub outs for a standard sink. We also have the drain that is also a PVC. And when you're getting ready to install your angle stops, a lot of times you've already painted or there has been tile put in, and the pipe tends to get a little bit dirty. So you're going to want to take some sandcloth, clean off that pipe. This is to help the ring that is in the angle stop to be able to crimp onto the pipe very well, so that it doesn't come loose or leak. So make sure that you clean off your pipe very well and you have your bucket ready to go so you can cut that pipe. Now when you're measuring your pipe for where you need to cut it, I use my second knuckle on my finger, and that is about 2 inches, and that will allow enough space for your angle stop as well as your escutcheon to fit on the pipe. And so once you cut that, you'll let the water drain out. Be prepared for a little bit of pressure at first. A lot of times that extra water in the pipe pushes out a lot of pressure, but it shouldn't last very long. And be prepared with the bucket, and once again make sure that your water is off at the main. So the most commonly forgotten part to install is your escutcheon. Okay, so whatever you do, you're not going to want to forget to put your escutcheon on, because the escutcheon makes it look nice and pretty and covers up that hole in the back. So don't forget to do that. Now when you are installing it, the best way to do it is to push the escutcheon on backwards, which allows for that flared part to expand to the size of the pipe, and then you're going to pull it off and then flip it around and put it on the correct way. And this process makes it much easier for being able to put the escutcheon on. So here we're going to take a closer look at our angle stop. Now at the bottom here we have our angle stop valve, which allows you to turn the water off. And then above that we have our brass ferrule ring, and this is what will crimp onto the copper, which will prevent leaks. And then above that we have our nut, which will tighten down onto the angle stop, which crimps down the brass ring.
Now, technically, we do not have to install dope onto our angle stop before we attach the angle stop to the pipe, but just to ensure that you're not going to have any leaks, especially if it's a cheaper angle stop, this dope will help to prevent it to leak. So what you're going to do is you're going to take off the nut and the ferrule, and you're going to put the dope on the inside, just that inside lip of the angle stop. And then once you do that, you're going to put the ferrule back on and the nut, and then you're going to loosely tighten that nut back on. So another thing to remember when you're installing your angle stop is to make sure that the valve is shut in the off position. So in the top picture it is turned on, and in the bottom picture it is shut off. This will make sure that when you do turn the water back on, you're not going to have water coming out of your angle stop when you are getting ready to test to make sure that you have no leaks. Another thing to keep in mind is on the right side, that ferrule sometimes likes to move around, and so what you want to do is make sure that it's perfectly straight in there, and then you can loosely tighten that that nut onto the angle stop, and then that way you're able to press your angle stop onto the pipe. Now most of the time we're going to be using copper pipe, but if we're ever using PEX, you're going to need to have little inserts. It's a little plastic or metal insert that allows for the angle stop to be able to crimp onto it so that the pipe does not collapse when you tighten the ferrule onto it. So this will cause it to not leak. Otherwise the PEX pipe is just a little too soft for the ferrule to be able to grab onto that pipe. So if you're ever putting any angle stops onto PEX, you're going to need these little inserts to make sure that it's tightened down.
And the next step will be to tighten down your angle stop. Now when you're putting the angle stop on, you want to make sure that it is firmly pressed onto the pipe. If it's not completely pushed onto the pipe, that ferrule ring, that brass ring, may not be able to grip enough of the pipe, and it will not seal. So make sure that it is firmly pressed onto the pipe as you are tightening it down. And the next thing you'll do is take your angle stop tools and tighten down the angle stop very firmly. And you can use 2 wrenches, but the angle stop tool does make it much easier. So if you can, it's probably best to invest into some good angle stop tools. So the next step will be to turn on your water and make sure that your angle stops are holding. Maybe continuously check them every few minutes. Just go back and check to see if they're leaking. You don't want there to be any kind of slow leak that will cause water damage to a cabinet, especially if it's in a cabinet. And then if it does cause water damage, you may have to replace the cabinet. So just make sure that there are no leaks. And that is the process of how to install the angle stop.